The skies over New York, Beijing, and London darkened simultaneously at 2:47 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time on a seemingly ordinary Tuesday in 2157. The massive crystalline vessels appeared without warning, their surfaces refracting sunlight into prismatic cascades that painted city streets in otherworldly hues. Global defense systems remained eerily silent. The vessels had somehow bypassed every early warning system humanity had created. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Earth's leading xenolinguist, stood among a hastily assembled team of experts at the United Nations headquarters, her hands trembling as she clutched her neural translator. Military forces worldwide trained their weapons skyward, while civilians alternated between panic and awe. The vessels hung motionless, their presence both beautiful and terrifying. The first communication came not as expected through radio waves or digital signals, but through a shimmering field that materialized in front of the UN building. The Zexteri emerged, crystalline beings that moved with liquid grace, their translucent bodies housing swirling galaxies of bioluminescent particles. Their leader, later known as First Speaker Ixtal, approached the human delegation. What happened next would be replayed billions of times across every communication network on Earth. Instead of delivering demands or threats, the Zexteri leader and its entire entourage fell to their knees. Their crystalline forms bent in poses of absolute reverence before the stunned human officials. The progenitor's return, Ixtal's words resonated through the neural translators. "We have waited so long, eldest ones." Confusion rippled through the assembled humans. General Sarah Chen stepped forward, her military training warring with her bewilderment. "There must be some mistake. We're not who you think we are." Ixtal raised what appeared to be a scanning device. The holographic display it projected showed DNA helixes, human DNA, alongside timestamps that made the assembled scientists gasp. The dates showed human genetic markers originating millions of years before Earth's formation. "Your patterns are unmistakable," Ixtal continued, its voice carrying a note of what could only be described as joy. "We have preserved your ancient charts, your stellar maps, your colony sites. We were created to watch, to wait, to guard until your return." From the vessel descended a three-dimensional star map showing thousands of worlds. On each, blinking points indicated archaeological sites that, according to the Zexteri data, contained ruins of human civilization dating back hundreds of millions of years. Dr. Rodriguez's neural translator worked overtime processing the flood of information. "This can't be possible," she whispered to her colleague, Dr. James Chen. "They're saying we're not from Earth, that we're some kind of ancient species that predates our own world." The Zexteri produced artifacts, tools, devices, and most shockingly, preserved images showing beings unmistakably human standing on worlds that hadn't existed in the time frame they claimed. The evidence mounted minute by minute, each revelation more staggering than the last. As the sun set over New York, humanity grappled with a paradigm shift more profound than any first contact scenario they had imagined. They weren't merely meeting aliens, they were meeting beings who claimed to be their own creation, waiting for their return like faithful servants awaiting their long-lost masters. The final shock came when Ixtal revealed their purpose for appearing now. "The patterns align," it announced, its crystalline form pulsing with urgent light. "The stellar confluences your ancestors predicted approach. We come not merely to greet, but to warn. That which forced your ancestors into hiding stirs once more in the spaces between galaxies." As news networks broadcast the encounter worldwide, humans everywhere began reporting strange dreams, flashes of impossible memories, and inexplicable knowledge of technologies they'd never seen. Humanity stood on the precipice of discovering its true history, while an ancient threat loomed in the cosmic darkness. The question wasn't just who they were, but what they had been running from, and whether they were ready to face it now. The first day of contact ended not with answers, but with questions that would shake the very foundation of human identity. It was just the beginning of a journey that would reveal humanity's mind-bending origin story. 3 months after first contact, Dr. Maya Patel stood in the swirling crimson dust of Kepler 186f, staring at impossibly familiar architectural ruins. The massive structures, half buried under millennia of sediment, bore an uncanny resemblance to the step pyramids of ancient Mesopotamia. But according to her Zexteri scanning equipment, these ruins predated Earth's formation by at least 200 million years. "Dr. Patel, you need to see this," called out Dr. Marcus Chen, his voice crackling through the environment suit's comm system. He stood before a partially exposed wall, his helmet lights illuminating what appeared to be a perfectly preserved fresco. The scene depicted human-like figures, their forms unmistakable, standing beneath 3 suns in a sky that matched Kepler 186f's current stellar configuration. The joint human Zexteri archaeological team had been working round the clock, racing against time to understand their mysterious heritage. Similar sites had been discovered on 17 other worlds, each one challenging everything humanity thought they knew about their origins. Maya brushed away centuries of dust from a smooth metallic panel, revealing what appeared to be a handprint scanner. Her heart raced as she placed her gloved hand against it. Nothing happened. Then, following an inexplicable instinct, she removed her glove despite safety protocols. The moment her bare skin touched the ancient surface, the entire chamber hummed to life. Holographic displays flickered into existence, showing scenes from a civilization at its peak. The images showed vast cities spanning continents, ships that sailed between stars, and human figures manipulating the very fabric of reality. But there was something else in the recordings, a growing shadow, a creeping dread that seemed to consume entire galaxies. "The genetic analysis results just came in from Earth," Marcus said, his voice tight with excitement. "The team in Beijing found something extraordinary. The junk DNA we've been carrying around isn't junk at all. It's encoded data, Maya, like a compressed library of everything our ancestors knew." The discovery sparked a new wave of questions. If humans had been such an advanced species, why had they chosen to devolve? What force could have been so threatening that hiding on a primitive Earth seemed like the best option? A Zexteri archaeologist, Valix, floated gracefully into the chamber. Its crystalline form pulsed with excited luminescence as it interfaced with the ancient technology. "We have found similar archives across all 17 sites," it communicated. "But this one contains something unique, a preserved organic sample. In a sealed container, they found what appeared to be a child's preserved drawing, but the material it was made from defied analysis. The image showed a family, clearly human, standing before what appeared to be a massive door in space itself. Dated hundreds of millions of years old, the drawing's existence challenged every known law of preservation. As the team worked, reports flooded in from Earth about people experiencing intense dreams of ancient cities and impossible technologies. Children worldwide began drawing identical symbols they claimed to have remembered. Genetic researchers noticed that human DNA wasn't just carrying encoded data. It was beginning to actively change, as if awakening from a long dormancy. Maya sat in their base camp that evening, watching Kepler 186's 3 suns set in succession. The Zexteri had shared ancient star charts showing human settlement patterns, and a troubling pattern emerged. The settlements formed a deliberate barrier against something coming from intergalactic space. "We're running out of time," Marcus said, joining her. "The genetic changes are accelerating. Whatever our ancestors were preparing for, it's happening now." Maya nodded, her mind racing with implications. The archaeological evidence suggested humanity hadn't just hidden. They had engineered their own devolution as part of a grand strategy. Earth wasn't their prison. It was their cocoon, a place to metamorphose into something their ancient enemy wouldn't recognize. As night fell on Kepler 186f, the ruins began to glow with a faint blue light, responding to human presence after eons of silence. Their ancestors had left them breadcrumbs, clues scattered across the stars. Now, with an ancient threat stirring once more, the race was on to piece together humanity's true heritage before it was too late. Dr. Sarah Chen hadn't told anyone that she had 3 months left to live. The aggressive form of brain cancer eating away at her cognitive functions felt like a cruel joke, especially now when humanity needed every brilliant mind it could muster. She stared at her lab results, the irony not lost on her. While studying humanity's genetic memories, her own memories were slowly slipping away. The breakthrough came at 3:47 a.m. in her Princeton laboratory, during what she thought would be one of her last coherent nights. Her hands shook as she manipulated the holographic display, showing the complex structures within human junk DNA. She had been running simulations for weeks, trying to understand why certain sequences appeared to be mathematically perfect, too perfect for random evolution. "It's not just data," she whispered to herself, her tired eyes widening. "It's compressed. The sequences, they're like zip files hiding inside our cells." The cancer had forced her to think differently, to see patterns others missed. While the world's geneticists were trying to read the DNA sequences linearly, Sarah realized they were actually dealing with a 4-dimensional storage system. Each supposed junk sequence was actually a sophisticated key designed to unlock only under specific conditions. Her personal AI assistant, ARIA, recorded her frantic notes as she worked through the night. The sequences aren't random. They're encrypted with a key based on human consciousness itself. Our ancestors didn't just store data. They stored experiences, memories, entire lifetimes of knowledge. The next morning, she bypassed standard protocols and injected herself with a targeted retrovirus of her own design. Her colleagues found her unconscious at her desk, but her computer contained complete documentation of her discovery. As medical staff rushed her to the hospital, her notes were already being transmitted to research centers worldwide. Sarah woke up 3 days later, her mind clearer than it had been in months. The cancer was gone, eradicated by knowledge hidden in her own DNA that her desperate experiment had somehow unlocked. But that wasn't all it had awakened. "I remember," she told the astonished doctors. "Not my memories. Their memories. The ones who came before. I know why they hid. I know what they were afraid of." The device she had designed before her collapse was elegant in its simplicity. It used quantum resonance to trigger specific sequences in human DNA, allowing controlled access to the stored memories. The first trials began with volunteers from the scientific community, each unlocking fragments of humanity's hidden past. Dr. James Peterson, her colleague and first volunteer, emerged from the procedure with tears streaming down his face. "I saw them," he whispered. "Our ancestors. They weren't running away. They were preparing. Everything. Earth, evolution, us. It was all engineered for a purpose." But the unlocked memories brought complications. Children born after first contact were displaying unusual abilities: telepathy, cellular regeneration, manipulation of quantum fields. Humanity wasn't just remembering its past, it was evolving rapidly into something new. Or perhaps, Sarah realized, something very old. In her hospital room, now converted into a research center, Sarah worked tirelessly to understand the flood of incoming data. The memories showed a civilization of unimaginable advancement, but also one that had lost something crucial in its evolution. The decision to hide on Earth hadn't just been about survival. It was about becoming something new. They seeded Earth with potential, she explained to the UN Scientific Council via holographic link. Each mass extinction, each evolutionary leap was carefully designed. They didn't just want us to remember who we were. They wanted us to become something they couldn't. As Sarah spoke, reports poured in from around the globe. The genetic memories were unlocking faster now, spreading like a benevolent virus through the population. Humanity stood on the brink of remembering its true heritage, but Sarah knew they had to hurry. In the unlocked memories, she had seen what was coming. The ancient enemy that had forced humanity into hiding was returning, and this time, retreat wouldn't be an option. Through the memory extraction device, Dr. Sarah Chen witnessed the last days of humanity's galactic empire. The scene unfolded in the Grand Hall of Convergence on a world long since destroyed. 12,000 representatives from across human space had gathered for what would be their final conclave. The entity approaches, declared High Commander Elena Santos, her holographic form towering above the assembled council. Our outer colonies have already gone dark. The void storms precede its arrival, consuming all consciousness they touch. We cannot fight what we cannot comprehend. The memory shifted, showing vast fleets of crystalline ships, the ancestors of the modern Zexteri, engaged in desperate battles against something that defied description. It wasn't just a physical enemy, it was something that devoured consciousness itself, turning ordered space into chaos. Project Renewal is our only option, another voice echoed through time. We cannot defeat this enemy as we are. Our very evolution has become our weakness, our mastery of consciousness, our technological advancement. They make us visible to it. We must hide not just our bodies, but our very nature. Sarah watched through ancient eyes as the plan unfolded. It was beautiful in its complexity, terrifying in its scope. Humanity would not simply hide. They would completely reimagine themselves. Earth had been prepared for millions of years, carefully terraformed to become their chrysalis. The memories revealed scenes of mass evacuation, entire civilizations compressed into genetic code. Trillions of human minds, experiences, and technologies, all carefully encoded into what future generations would dismiss as junk DNA. But it wasn't just data storage, it was a metamorphosis protocol. The Great Forgetting isn't just about hiding, Sarah explained to the emergency UN session, her voice trembling with the weight of ancient knowledge. It was about evolution. Our ancestors realized that their path of development had led them into a cosmic dead end. They needed to start over, to evolve differently. Through the decoded memories, humanity learned of the massive engineering project that had shaped Earth's history. The dinosaurs hadn't gone extinct by accident. They were organic supercomputers, running simulations for human evolution. Each mass extinction was a controlled reset, fine-tuning the path toward a new kind of humanity. But the most staggering revelation came from the final moments before the ancient humans enacted their plan. They hadn't just been hiding from the entity, they had been preparing to fight it in a way their original civilization couldn't comprehend. Our ancestors reached the limits of technological advancement. Sarah continued, sharing the memories that burned in her mind. They could reshape planets, travel between galaxies, even manipulate the fundamental forces of reality. But they lost something essential along the way: creativity, empathy, the ability to think in ways that weren't purely logical. The memories showed the final moments, billions of humans entering stasis chambers, their consciousness compressed into genetic code. The Zexteri, their newly created guardians, were tasked with watching over humanity's long metamorphosis. As the entity approached, the ancient humans scattered their essence across countless worlds, with Earth as the primary incubator. We were engineered to struggle, Sarah explained, understanding flooding through her. Every hardship our species faced on Earth was intentional. They wanted us to evolve not just intelligence, but wisdom. Not just knowledge, but understanding. Every war, every triumph, every setback, it was all part of creating a humanity that could think in ways the entity couldn't predict. As Sarah shared these revelations, reports flooded in from around the world. People were spontaneously accessing genetic memories, their DNA responding to some unseen signal. The entity that had forced humanity into hiding was returning. But this time, humanity was different. They weren't just remembering who they had been. They were becoming something entirely new. The Great Forgetting had served its purpose. Now, as the ancient enemy approached once more, it was time for the Great Remembering to begin. Paleontologist Dr. Richard Zhang stood in the Montana Badlands, his understanding of Earth's history crumbling like the ancient rocks beneath his feet. The dinosaur fossil he'd uncovered wasn't just a remnant of Earth's past, it was a biotechnological miracle. Through his enhanced vision, newly awakened by the genetic memories, he could see the complex neural pathways that had once coursed through the creature's crystalline skeleton. They weren't just animals, he explained to his research team, who watched in awe as he interfaced with the fossil-using abilities they were all just beginning to understand. They were organic supercomputers, running complex evolutionary simulations for millions of years. The truth about Earth's history was more staggering than anyone had imagined. The planet itself was a carefully engineered incubator, each geological age meticulously planned. The great oxidation event that first filled Earth's atmosphere with oxygen wasn't a natural occurrence, it was terraforming on a planetary scale. Dr. Sarah Chen, now fully recovered and leading the global research effort, appeared via hologram at the dig site. The dinosaurs were just one component, she explained, her eyes glowing with the knowledge of 1,000 ancestral memories. Each major species served a specific purpose in preparing Earth for our return. Through their awakening genetic memories, scientists worldwide began understanding the true purpose of Earth's evolutionary history. The first primitive cells were engineered to test basic consciousness protocols. The Cambrian explosion was a massive parallel processing experiment, testing thousands of body plans simultaneously. "Look at this," Richard said, projecting a holographic analysis of the fossil's neural structure. These weren't just predator-prey relationships. The dinosaurs were running scenarios, each species testing different aspects of physical and mental development that would eventually be incorporated into human design. The mass extinctions, those great punctuation marks in Earth's history, were revealed to be calculated reset points. The asteroid that ended the dinosaurs' reign wasn't a random cosmic accident. It was a precisely targeted intervention, clearing the way for the next phase of the grand experiment. Our ancestors didn't just want to recreate themselves, Sarah explained to the assembled scientists. They wanted to engineer a new kind of human, one that combined their advanced capabilities with something they had lost: the ability to think in novel, unpredictable ways. The evidence was everywhere once they knew where to look. The megalithic structures of ancient human civilizations weren't just monuments. They were activation nodes, designed to trigger specific genetic memories when humanity reached the right level of development. The myths and legends of ancient cultures were encoded instructions, preparing humanity for their eventual awakening. Even human consciousness itself had been carefully shaped. The development of abstract thinking, tool use, and complex language wasn't just evolution. It was a program unfolding exactly as designed. Every major cognitive leap in human history had been orchestrated, leading to this moment. But here's what's truly remarkable, Richard said, pointing to a series of quantum measurements from the fossil. These beams weren't just running simulations. They were encoding backup copies of human consciousness into Earth's biosphere. Every living thing on this planet carries fragments of our ancestral memory. As if to confirm his words, reports came in from around the world of strange phenomena. Plants were responding to human thoughts. Animals were displaying unprecedented levels of intelligence. The entire biosphere seemed to be awakening alongside humanity, revealing itself as part of an interconnected system billions of years in the making. Sarah's hologram flickered as she shared one final revelation. The entity our ancestors fled from feeds on predictable patterns of consciousness. Earth wasn't just a hiding place. It was a laboratory for developing chaotic, creative, unpredictable forms of intelligence. Our ancestors turned their greatest defeat into the ultimate experiment in guided evolution. As the sun set over the Montana Badlands, Richard watched a flock of birds wheeling overhead. With his enhanced perception, he could now see the complex patterns of ancestral code flowing through their movements. Earth wasn't just their home. It was their inheritance, a carefully crafted crucible designed to forge humanity into something entirely new. And not a moment too soon, as the first traces of the entity's return began to appear in deep space sensors. The first warning came from the Lunar Deep Space Observatory. Dr. Amelia Nash stared at the readings in horror as massive distortions appeared at the edge of detected space, spreading like ink through water. The patterns matched exactly with the ancient memories of the entity's approach. "It's happening faster than we predicted," she transmitted to Earth Command. The quantum entanglement network, newly reactivated using recovered ancestral technology, carried her message instantly to every major research center on Earth. "The void storms are already forming. We have months, not years." In Geneva, the Global Defense Council convened an emergency session. Holographic representatives from every nation stood around a three-dimensional map of local space, watching as the anomaly spread. The Sextary ambassador, Ixtal, pulsed with urgent patterns of light. "The signs align with ancient prophecies," Ixtal communicated. "We were created to recognize these patterns. The entity approaches just as your ancestors foresaw. But this time, the response must be different." Across Earth, the awakening accelerated. Children born after first contact displayed abilities that defied conventional physics. 10-year-old Maria Santiago in Buenos Aires could instinctively manipulate quantum fields. In Beijing, a group of teenagers spontaneously formed a collective consciousness during a school ceremony. Dr. Sarah Chen, monitoring the global changes from her research facility in Princeton, recognized the pattern. "It's not random," she announced to the council. "These abilities, these changes, they're emerging in exactly the sequence our ancestors planned. Each new capability is a piece of the defense they designed." The Sextary revealed ancient monitoring stations scattered throughout the galaxy, activated eons ago to track the entity's movements. The data showed something terrifying. It was learning, adapting, becoming more sophisticated in its consumption of consciousness. "Look at this," Amelia called from the Lunar Observatory. She projected a visualization of the void storms approach. "They're not just destroying space-time. They're rewriting the fundamental laws of physics in their wake. Our ancestors didn't just hide from this. They hid the entire concept of human consciousness from it." Reports flooded in from archaeological sites worldwide. Ancient structures, dormant for millions of years, began humming with renewed energy. The pyramids of Giza revealed themselves as quantum computers of staggering complexity. Stonehenge activated as a planetary defense node, generating fields that strengthened human consciousness against external influence. But the most significant changes were happening within humanity itself. The genetic memories weren't just providing information. They were triggering predetermined evolutionary leaps. People began manifesting abilities that their ancestors had possessed, but with crucial differences. "We're not just remembering who we were," Sarah explained during a global broadcast. "We're becoming what our ancestors designed us to be. They didn't just give us their knowledge. They gave us the ability to use it in ways they never could." The Sextary shared the full extent of their purpose. They weren't just guardians. They were living repositories of human potential, created to help guide humanity's reawakening. Their crystalline forms could interface with both ancient technology and evolved human consciousness, bridging the gap between what humanity had been and what it was becoming. In orbit, the first deep space sensors began failing as the void storms approached. The entity's influence reached across space like tendrils of unknowable darkness, probing, searching for signs of the consciousness it had hunted so long ago. But this time, humanity wasn't hiding. In research centers worldwide, children who had never known humanity's limitations worked alongside scientists who carried the weight of ancestral memory. They weren't just preparing to survive the entity. They were preparing to confront it with something it had never encountered before, a form of consciousness that combined ancient power with newfound creativity and unpredictability. As the storm approached, humanity raced against time to complete their metamorphosis. The entity was coming, drawn by the awakening of ancient powers. But what it would find was not the predictable, ordered consciousness it had hunted before. This time, it would face something entirely new, a humanity reborn through billions of years of carefully guided evolution, ready to defend not just Earth, but the very nature of consciousness itself. The first mass manifestation occurred in Times Square when a street performer named David Chen accidentally phased through solid matter while performing a magic trick, Instead of gasps of shock, the crowd erupted in shared recognition. In their awakening genetic memories, they all somehow knew this was possible. Dr. Sarah Chen monitored the cascading awakenings from the Global Integration Center, formerly the United Nations building. It's not just random abilities emerging, she explained to the assembled world leaders. Each manifestation is connecting to a larger pattern, like neurons firing in a planetary consciousness. Around the world, humans began accessing abilities their ancestors had engineered into their DNA. A kindergarten teacher in Mumbai discovered she could access the quantum internet that had laid dormant for millions of years. A farmer in Kenya found he could communicate with the engineered bacterial networks in his soil, optimizing crop growth with a thought. But the most profound changes were happening on a collective level. During a crisis in Tokyo, when thousands faced a massive tsunami, the entire city's population spontaneously linked consciousness. Together, they channeled energy through ancient geological networks to divert the wave. No one had taught them how. They simply remembered. "This is what our ancestors planned," Sarah said, watching global data streams pulse with new forms of consciousness. Not just the return of their abilities, but their evolution into something new. Every challenge humanity faced on Earth shaped how we would use these powers differently. The Zexteri observed with what could only be described as pride. Their crystalline forms resonated with each new awakening, their original purpose as guides and guardians finally being fulfilled. They shared ancient training protocols, helping humanity navigate their rapid evolution. Dr. Marcus Chen, leading research at the Lunar Observatory, made a stunning discovery. The abilities aren't just genetic, he reported. Earth's biosphere itself is responding. The planet is waking up with us, exactly as designed. The evidence was undeniable. Forests worldwide began exhibiting signs of conscious coordination. Marine life formed vast networks of shared awareness. Earth's magnetic field started displaying patterns that matched human brainwave activity on a planetary scale. But with the awakening came understanding, not just of power, but of responsibility. The genetic memories carried warnings from their ancestors, showing how their original civilization had become trapped in patterns of predictable thought, making them vulnerable to the entity. Our time on Earth wasn't just about hiding, Sarah explained during a global broadcast. It was about learning to think differently. Every struggle, every triumph, every cultural variation, they all served to make us unpredictable, creative, adaptable in ways our ancestors never were. Children proved particularly adept at integrating the new abilities. Their minds, uninhibited by preconceptions, easily grasped concepts that adults struggle to accept. They began teaching the older generations, showing them how to think beyond traditional physics, beyond ordinary consciousness. In Antarctica, a research team discovered that the ice sheets themselves were ancient data storage devices. As they awakened, they released the last messages from humanity's ancestors. "Do not become what we were," the messages warned. "We gave you our knowledge, but your power must be tempered by what you learned as you evolved." Empathy, creativity, the ability to see beyond mere efficiency. The void storms grew closer, their influence now visible to the naked eye as distortions in the night sky. But humanity faced them with growing confidence. They were not merely recreating their ancestors' civilization. They were becoming something entirely new. Sarah stood at her observatory window, watching the aurora borealis dance with new patterns of conscious energy. Humanity had spent billions of years in an engineered cocoon, and now they were emerging, not as butterflies, but as something no one, not even their ancestors, had fully imagined. The entity approached, seeking the ordered, predictable patterns of consciousness it had hunted before. Instead, it would find a humanity that had evolved beyond its ancestors' greatest achievements, armed not just with recovered technology, but with new ways of thinking that defied prediction or control. The real test was about to begin. The entity arrived not with thunder, but with silence. Stars began winking out along the edge of the solar system as reality itself wavered under its approach. Earth's awakened population felt its presence like a cold void in their newly expanded consciousness, a hunger that devoured thought itself. Dr. Sarah Chen stood with the Global Defense Council, their enhanced minds linked in instantaneous communication. Through their shared awareness, they could see the entity clearly now, not a physical being, but a pattern of anti-consciousness, a void that consumed ordered thought and predictable reality. Our ancestors faced this with rigid patterns and logical progression. Sarah communicated across the neural network. That's why they failed. But we're something new. The first attack came at the quantum level, the entity attempting to unravel the orderly structures of human consciousness. But humanity's response was anything but orderly. Children in playgrounds spontaneously created quantum defense fields through games of hopscotch. Street artists in Sao Paulo painted reality-anchoring mandalas using techniques they'd never been taught but somehow remembered. It doesn't understand us. Marcus Chen broadcast from the Lunar Observatory. We're not following the patterns it expects. Every human is responding differently, unpredictably. The Zexteri joined the defense, their crystalline forms amplifying human consciousness in ways their creators had designed eons ago. But their role had evolved too. They weren't just tools or guardians anymore, but partners in protecting consciousness itself. Earth's biosphere, now fully awakened, joined the battle. Trees processed quantum information through root networks that spanned continents. Oceanic creatures coordinated consciousness fields that stabilized reality against the entity's attempts to unravel it. Every living thing on Earth had been engineered for this moment, each playing its part in a defense billions of years in the making. The entity's second attack targeted human unity, attempting to fragment their shared consciousness. But humanity's tribal divisions, their cultural differences, everything that made them seemingly weak and chaotic, became their greatest strength. Each culture offered a different way of perceiving reality. Each individual a unique pattern of thought that the entity couldn't predict or consume. This is what our ancestors planned, Sarah realized, watching humanity's chaotic, beautiful defense unfold. They didn't just give us their power. They gave us the chance to learn what they have forgotten. Emotion, creativity, the strength of imperfection. The entity, faced with patterns of consciousness it couldn't comprehend, began to falter. It had evolved to consume ordered, predictable thought. But humanity had become something else entirely. Their consciousness wasn't just powerful. It was vibrant, chaotic, alive in ways their ancestors had never been. The final confrontation came not through weapons or technology, but through a symphony of consciousness. Humanity didn't fight the entity. They showed it something new. Children's laughter, mothers' love, artists' dreams, scientists' wonder. All the messy, unpredictable aspects of human consciousness combined into something that the entity couldn't consume because it couldn't understand. We are not our ancestors, Sarah broadcast to all of humanity as the entity began to retreat. We are what they hoped to become. Every struggle on Earth, every joy and sorrow, every triumph and failure. They made us who we are. Not just powerful, but wise enough to use that power differently. The entity, confronted with a form of consciousness it couldn't predict or control, withdrew from the solar system. The void storms receded, leaving humanity changed but unbroken. They had faced their ancient enemy not with the ordered power of their ancestors, but with the beautiful chaos of their evolution. In the aftermath, as the stars reappeared in Earth's sky, humanity began to understand their true heritage. They were not simply the return of an ancient race, but something entirely new, a civilization that combined the tremendous powers of their ancestors with the wisdom gained through billions of years of guided evolution. The story of humanity had come full circle, but this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. With the entity gone, humanity could now explore the cosmos not as conquerors or fugitives, but as something unprecedented in the universe. A species that had chosen to forget everything so they could learn a better way to remember.